Oi!
Hello and welcome to today's Friday Facebook Live. It's another Friday all over again. That's another week gone. So today we are going to talk about marketing automation and workflow. Don't groan. It is exciting, I promise.
I'm groaning already.
We have two guests with us today. So first of all, Sean, what's your name and where do you come from?
So I'm Sean from Blue Wren. So we're a software company based in Preston, and we help businesses with their workflows, essentially, starting with a mapping process to sort of track where work needs to go, what triggers need to happen, and what that can do for their business, how it can make them more productive and more profitable.
Brilliant. So this is exactly what you do. This is right up your street.
I'd hope so.
Perfect.
Until I get found out in 2 minutes' time.
I'm sure we'll be found out, not you.
Dalley, who are you?
Simon Dalley, director here at Growtraffic founder. I have worked in marketing for 20 years and have done everything from working in agencies through to heading up marketing teams in tech businesses. Do you want me to tell you about my experience with automation?
No, I don't, because funnily enough, that's the next question that we're coming to. So thank you.
Thank goodness I stopped myself. I was just about to tell you all about it then.
I know, I can imagine. And I'm Rachel Weinhold, another director at Growtraffic. I don't have a massive experience in marketing automation and workflow, so I'm relying on these two to give me some answers, essentially. So we shall be on this exciting journey together. Right, so Sean, next question. What is your experience in marketing and workflow, and why do you care about it?
So I love the way this is really conversational as well.
Not at all scripted. Not at all scripted. Hang on. Let me just flick to page 2 of it.
Where's your answer?
No, so I've got a background in marketing as well. So I did a marketing degree, a couple of marketing jobs before heading into sort of a more marketing and sales sort of role at Blue Wren. But I've always had sort of a bit of an obsession with how you can automate and sort of just drive everything towards the ultimate conversion for your business. You know, whether it's a purchase online, leaving an inquiry just through a contact form, whatever it is, it's all about trying to get people to engage with your business ultimately. And from a personal perspective, I've looked at that from an e-commerce journey. So for a sportswear company, how we could keep people engaged, keep them coming back, buying more, but also in my current role at Blue Wren, it's about how we can automate and sort of support the workflows through different businesses, not just on the marketing side, but the entire sort of customer journey, if you like. So all the customer touch points, whether that's a B2B business sending an invoice reminder, or an e-commerce sending a checkout reminder, or a basket sort of abandon reminder to somebody with a discount code. These are all sorts of things that we look to capture, and it always starts, as I said, with a process map. It's all about that sort of beginning point of mapping that journey through the business.
It's a massive,
though, isn't it?
It's all marketing. It's a massive thing at the moment, isn't it? I think everywhere, I don't know whether it's just because this is what the algorithms have picked up about me, but everywhere I look at the moment on Facebook and stuff, I'm getting loads of adverts for people who are automating everything. I know, Jenny Hardman, who we both know from our BNI group, she's been talking a lot about automation recently. It seems to be the way people are going. And we talked about kind of process mapping, or we touched on it a little bit in last week's session, didn't we? And it is something we're going to come on to, but I think it's a pertinent thing to talk about now. It seems to be something that a lot of small to medium businesses are starting to think about, potentially because COVID has shown everybody that we need to think up different ways of working, and we need to kind of get a better work-life balance. And if we can automate something and make it easier, why the hell shouldn't we do it? So
if you're passionate about scaling your business beyond say a micro or a very small SME, then you've got to look at where you can automate, because the amount of time that it'll save, but also revenue that it'll generate, it's both sides of the coin. It's not not doing one, you're doing both with this one automation piece, because you don't have to work hard or as hard, because the process is working for you. And that doesn't, people always confuse that with losing the personal touch. Now, automation and workflows can trigger a notification for you, Rachel, to pick up the phone and call someone about their order. It doesn't have to be a lack of a personal touch, but it's about automating the process to make sure that the level of service is consistent and efficient.
Yeah, and it depends on the more layers you build into the kind of automation, the more trigger points that you have in there, the more that tree breaks out, the more personalized that process will be anyway.
Yes, well, I am going to come back onto that, because I want to talk about that both from a customer point of view, but also from I'm interested in kind of how you convince the businesses that you work with that it's a viable thing as well, Sean. But just first, Simon Dalley, why do you care about marketing automation, or do you care about marketing automation?
I do really care about marketing automation. I've been very fortunate that I've worked in a number of kind of tech businesses over the years. I have headed up a handful of marketing functions, but like I said, a lot of those have been tech businesses. So along the way, I've had relatively limited kind of or shall I say top level input into those, and other people have kind of mapped things out and built things out for me, and I've just kind of said, we thought about maybe tweaking things around a little bit. So because I really started out in marketing probably 7 to 10 years before it really became a big thing to have to do kind of marketing automation to kind of automate some of those processes. But yeah, so I do think it's important. I do think it's something that I would always get somebody else to do. As you will know, Rachel, process is not something that I am particularly. It's not particularly my strongest suit, and it's not the first thing that comes to mind. And it needs to be automated, because I can never follow a process. I've never been able to follow a plan. I've never been able to follow my own marketing plans, let alone, some like a tedious process that needs to happen in terms of kind of converting on customers. So
yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, and as I said, this is not something that I've had an awful lot of experience of. The only way that I know about it is something that we started looking at for Growtraffic. I think we started at the beginning of last year, actually, didn't we? Saying, we need to start automating some of these processes. We need to make it easier for ourselves. We don't want to drop the ball. We didn't even have a CRM at that point. And it's something that we started going down the road of investigating. And then obviously COVID has derailed everything that we've done, and we are no further at all along the line. So again, this is something that we need to look at ourselves for our own business, as well as talking about it from our client's point of view. So on to the next bit. I'll just move a little bit further along in the script here.
Sorry, have we gone on to another page?
Just turn the page. Before we go any further, I would like some definitions from you both, please. So we've talked about kind of why you like marketing and its importance and stuff. So first of all, what is marketing automation and what is workflow? Let's go back to basics. Sean, I'm coming to you first. What do those two things mean to you?
So for me, a workflow is that critical path through the business. So from the minute you first interact with a business to repeat custom to multiple purchases, whatever that is your workflow and how people engage with your business. Now, the marketing automation side of it powers the workflow. So you look at what triggers, what elements of automation you can introduce to capture more, to achieve more sales. So whether that's, you've ordered your a pair of trainers, and then it sends you an email a day later. Well, for your trainers, you need a nice new pair of socks to go with that, and it says those socks will look better with these jeans, and works your way up. However that works, or after your first purchase, making sure they're sending you a discount code, all these things. And it's about understanding the habits. So whilst automation is the first step, and so, well, defining the workflow is the first step, and the process behind that. Then it's automating what you can. You've got to look at it as a never-ending process, because you have to interrogate what changes are having the impact and why they're having the impact. So what message are people resonating with when you send them a post-purchase email, for example? Those sorts of things.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that the kind of the e-commerce world, especially online, they're absolutely, shit hot at this, aren't they? You know that when you first log in, they'll say, do you want to sign up and get 10% off? You sign up, they'll say, do you want to get our weekly newsletter? You buy something, they'll send you an email 2 days later saying, please, will you write us a review? Then a month later, you get another 10% off voucher to encourage you to come back. E-commerce websites and companies seem to have this absolutely down pat. But I think a lot of service businesses forget, don't they, that this is something that they can benefit from as well. But it is equally applicable. When you first onboard a client, for example, how good would it be if at that point you could, just as a standard thing, send them a welcome pack? These are our terms and conditions. These are the ethics by which we will deal with you. This is what you can expect from us as one of our clients. Here's a voucher if you want to refer a friend to become one of our clients.
And again, it's the power of the information that you hold against that individual, that customer. So on a service basing, how great would it be if your clients got a birthday card or a little gift off you when that comes round? And those are little personal touches. And this is the point of marketing automation. The marketing automation, the workflow, is you recording that it's their birthday and getting a reminder a week before saying, send this person a birthday card, or send them a gift, or whatever it is, sending their monthly report with a personalized message on it. All these things are elements of automation and workflow that you can introduce to your business to make sure that you're keeping your customers, so that your customers don't switch off after their first purchase. That they're on the hook with you. They're on a journey and they're engaged with your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Liz has put that she was going to ask how this benefits the service business, and it is something we're going to come on to in a minute. So, but there are so many different ways in which you can do it. You think it's a B2C or even just an e-commerce thing, but it can absolutely be a service and a B2B thing.
It's important. It's just as important for B2B and service-based businesses, because those are the ones where you are. Especially if you're an owner deliverer of the business, so you're the one that's delivering the service as well. So Liz, I think, from a photography company. So if Liz is the photographer, as well as the finance person and the administrator and everything else, then that automation is going to ensure that the customers get a level of consistency on the service side and everything that encapsulates that service. So not just I turn up to the shoot on time, but the fact that I'm sending the edits through when I've said I have, because I've got a reminder to do the work to follow that up and then send it on to the customer, and that they're getting invoiced as we've agreed in the original proposal, because that's all captured in the same system and triggering the same workflows. It's about making sure there's no surprises for a customer and that they're communicated with frequently.
I'd actually even argue that it's more important for service businesses, because if you're just selling products, if you're an e-commerce website, somebody is going to buy your pair of jeans either because they're the cheapest or they fit nicest or they've got the right pattern on. They're going to buy the shoes because they're the right pair of shoes. The customer needs something, your product has met that need, they're going to buy it. Whereas with a service industry, there are so many photographers. How are you going to choose the one that is right for you? You can't. This photographer might take a photo that's just as nice as that photographer. So you've got to you're going to base your decision on whether you go with that person on a much more, kind of ephemeral sort of thing. Do you like them? Are you going to get on with them? Did they send me a birthday card? Did they send me some chocolates at Christmas? Yeah, right. Well, I'm going to keep using them. It builds that loyalty, doesn't it?
It's about scale as well, isn't it? It's a scaling thing. So most or lots of service businesses don't have it because they have fewer customers, and therefore they've always done it themselves, and it's relatively easy to write an email saying thanks for signing up, thanks for signing up. This is what's going to happen, and they'll do that every time because they get 1 or 2 new customers a month, or they get a handful of customers a month, and that's all some of those smaller service businesses need. And I know what you're saying about the e-commerce businesses, Rachel, but I think a lot of those e-commerce businesses do what they do because the e-commerce CMSs have just got to the point where they have got that stuff built into them. That's off the shelf. I bet a lot of the e-commerce businesses out there, apart from the bigger ones and some of the more switched on ones, a lot of them won't have even thought about it. A lot of them will be happy with what their system does. They'll have never mapped it out. So, a workflow essentially is a framework within which you map out the customer journey. And most businesses out there, most small businesses certainly, and lots of those e-commerce businesses that we come across will never have done that, not properly. And they'll just be using what the software does already.
Can I just jump in there? So we mapped out our buyer journey and our processes probably 3, maybe 4 years ago now. I think it was when Hannah first started working for Growtraffic, wasn't it? And we haven't gone back and done it since. Yet the business has changed massively since then, and especially we did a business development thing at Edge Hill at the tail end of last year. That kind of changed a lot of things about Growtraffic, and yet we didn't go back and revisit it. How often do you think businesses should be doing this, should be mapping out? I mean, do you kind of have guidance, Sean, that you speak to your customers about this, how often they should be doing it?
Our view is that it's a living organism essentially within the business. It's the framework that drives your business essentially. So from our perspective, we follow something called EOS, which is the Entrepreneur's Operating System, and that's sort of an implementation plan of how you monitor and track how your business is performing. Now, that means that you set things like 90-day goals. So you have something you're trying to achieve, and what we try and do is we focus those 90-day goals on improving certain areas within our processes. So to answer your question, we're constantly reviewing it and we're constantly working on it, but we set these achievable targets of, in this 90-day period, I want to have done X, Y, and Z as a sales process, and I want to have automated the communications to a customer before their new system goes live. Those might be the rocks that we set for a 90-day period, but it's something that needs inspected on a regular basis. I'd say at least quarterly, because you'll offer new services, or the way you offer the service will change, and therefore the workflow will need to change to reflect that. And I think that's something that can be neglected. And your objectives might change, right? So you might not want to bring on 20 new clients in the next 12 months. You might want to retain the current clients and get an extra 15% out of all the clients that you've got. That's a different objective, and your process and your workflow needs to reflect that accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've already mentioned kind of a few ways that that marketing automation and this workflow stuff can benefit businesses. How else can it do it? First of all, how else can it benefit a business? But also, how does it help a business with its marketing? It's 2 parts to that question. Dalley, I'm going to come to you first this time.
Sure. Okay. Okay. So the first thing to bear in mind is that when you're doing when you think about the workflows, you need to be thinking about the customer journey, about the buyer journey. You need to be thinking about the multiple stages within that. And I think lots of people forget the first stage, the awareness stage, and how that can factor in. So, we need to be always kind of filtering people down the funnel. And lots of businesses do things like create content or put a lot of ads out there that get people onto their website, but then they jump a couple of stages and they assume that they're going to go straight from that kind of awareness phase right at the beginning to decision phase, and they might miss out the consideration phase in the middle. And there's lots of things that people forget in terms of that kind of marketing piece and moving them along the funnel. For example, I was just trying to think of an example. You might have a blog post, I suppose. Or yeah, so let's say you've got a really broad blog post that somebody lands on, and you can go as granular as kind of categorizing your blog posts and then setting triggers up off the back of those and saying, for somebody who comes in on this specific blog post, they've got a problem in a certain area that relates to these products. So I'm going to either make a suggestion to them that they start reading another piece of content on the website there and then that's related to that product, or I might try and capture their email at that point, so I can start getting them into a stream where I can feed content at relevant points that just tips them down the funnel a little bit. I might, and then once I've got them in that, then I might be looking at other ways that I can capture more data from them. So I might be looking for a telephone number, so I could perhaps send out an SMS to them at a relevant point. There's lots of different ways, and then the other thing to consider is how somebody has come onto your site right from the beginning, how they engage with the content, because that will potentially change the types of content you serve to them. For example, somebody who comes in from a Google Ads ad rather than an organic listing, somebody in that mindset may be in a more transactional mindset than somebody who comes in from an organic listing. So you might be able to jump a couple of stages and say, right, well, we'll get them to the decision phase faster than somebody that comes in through the organic listings. But absolutely,
yeah. I'm just gonna just clarify that a bit and explain that. This is. I'm going to explain it a bit more because it's something that we talk about in kind of marketing language, and I think sometimes it's really hard. We talk about, and I was doing this somebody the other day, and I was talking about the intent and the different kind of stages that people are at different types of marketing. And basically, what we're saying is, if somebody's on social media, they're on Facebook, and they've just stumbled across one of your blog posts, they weren't actively looking for your product or service. They perhaps weren't even actively looking for a solution to the problem that they had. They just know that they had a problem and your blog post popped up and they thought it was interesting and they followed it. So somebody at that stage, they're going to need, as you said, they're going to need a lot more information. They're going to need to find out more about your product or service, why it solves their problem, why is it the best version of their problem solver, why are you the best person to buy it off. They need bringing, as you say, along that marketing funnel, so they need a lot more information. Whereas if somebody is clicking on a Google ad, they are much further down that process. They are actively looking at that point for your product or service, or your solution at the very least. So they're not going to need as much convincing. They're, as I say, a lot further along. They're much more ready to make that decision to either pick up the phone or buy it or fill out your contact form or whatever it might be. So it is about, when we talk about marketing automation and automation through your business, it really can take somebody from that first point that they encounter your business or see your name, right through to them signing up to becoming a client, right through to them renewing their contract a year later. It is that entire journey that somebody has with your business, isn't it? And that's a really complex thing to have.
And probably quite a lot of it is beyond the actual conversion stage. You've got your whole onboarding process, you've got retention and loyalty to factor in as well, but also advocacy as well. So you need to get your customers to try and persuade other people to use you as a customer.
Yeah, Sean,
so there was a couple of points in there. One of what Dalley was saying at the beginning brought me back to my consumer behaviour module at university, about the whole idea of, and it comes down to that sort of where they are in the buying journey. So at that awareness stage, there's this element of people still need to be able to recall you as being what they are looking for. So they're not even chosen you as a preferred supplier. But if, say, again, I'll use Liz as the example as a photographer. Say you want to search for a wedding photographer, for example. I'm not sure if that's what Liz does. Sorry if it isn't. But say you're searching for a wedding photographer, and you wanted, you know that's what you need, but you're doing a lot of research originally. Now you haven't necessarily got any local names that you associate as being the first name you go to for a wedding photographer. But if suddenly you land on Liz's website, and then there's a cookie, there's an advert that then follows you around and says Liz, best wedding photographer, etc., etc. That can make you recall Liz as being the wedding photographer of choice. Mm-hmm. And just because it's the same as walking past billboards down the high street. When you're scrolling down Facebook and you get a little bit of recall of a brand, it adds credibility to it, and adds credibility to them being a solution to your problem. I've been looking at cars for the last 18 months, just pipe dreams, basically. But it gives you a flavour of kind of, right now, my Facebook feed is full of VW, Audi adverts, all these things, because they want to make sure that when I'm actually at that point to buy, I'm top, that their brand and their cars are top of mind for me. So there's merit in that, but you've got to look at the value of the purchase and the frequency of the purchase. So when you take into account something like Wolverton's, or any of Hovis or something like that, a household brand that's usually in your cupboard every week, those sorts of brands want to make sure that they are always top of mind, because if they're not top of mind, you'll pick up a different loaf of bread when you go into the supermarket. Now, there's an element of kind of the first time you purchase, and then after a while you'll get attached to a brand. But until you've got to that purchase and that advocacy stage that you mentioned, Simon, there's no, there is no brand loyalty. So you haven't built that yet. So this recall is such an important concept, and automation can form a big part of forming that brand relationship, if you like.
I think that a lot of the things that we're talking about are, they're things that marketers have always done, but and businesses have always done with various stages of kind of that buyer journey. But we just got to remember that the kind of the way that people interact, or consumers or customers or clients interact with the brands and businesses that they buy from, it's just become that bit more complicated. And part of that is just the immediacy of the internet and what that enables a customer to do. So, for example, they could quite easily, you can be looking at one website and get the answer, but not quite, for whatever reason, find the product from that, and then you have to search again. You have to take another action to at some point to find the product that you're looking for, or the product that a brand has actually suggested that you buy. And it's all about making sure that that there's kind of a closed loop in marketing, so that the customer doesn't get away. Almost.
Yeah. But also, this is what we were talking about last week, isn't it? Where there used to be so much brand loyalty. You would be a Heinz soup person, and that Heinz soup was the only soup you would eat, and people had that brand loyalty that lasted a lifetime. And nowadays there is so much more choice, there is so much more access and availability to finding out about other brands. Once upon a time, you just wouldn't have known that there was this Covent Garden soup company that could deliver you this handmade soup, because the internet wouldn't have been there. We wouldn't have known about it. So you're absolutely right that companies, businesses and brands just have to work so much harder to generate that brand loyalty, even if we're not talking about brands. Service businesses, customers are fickle, and if they've had one tiny bad experience, they will go somewhere else and they will get their photographs taken somewhere else, or they'll get their SEO somewhere else, or their blog written elsewhere. And you know, it's not enough, I don't think, anymore to just do a really good job. I think you have to go that extra mile, and this is where that marketing automation process comes in, because it just means that you do not drop any balls along the way. You make sure your customer gets everything it needs at exactly the point that they need it, to keep them loyal to you and to keep them coming back and to keep them recognizing that added value that you're giving them.
Yeah, I don't think you can rely as much on having a superior product or core service offering. So whether that's a B2B or B2C environment, you can't rely on that being the whole package. It comes with everything else. So going back to the car one, having a 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty is much better than having a 1-year, 10,000-mile warranty. For obvious reasons, it gives you that peace of mind, and people are looking for that value add. So beyond the core service that you offer, how can you add value to your customers? And that can be done through automation, because you know what those triggers are. You know why they've chosen you a lot of the time and what they've come to you for. But how can you keep them coming back? So you mentioned before about subscribe to the newsletter and get 10% off. Advocacy is a great one. So how do you turn someone into a brand ambassador and a promoter for you? Offer them a referral scheme. You know,
Yes.
Uber Eats, I've just had a notification from them, recommend someone, you'll get a tenner off your next meal, and they'll get a tenner off their first order. Ideal. I'll do that straight away, because my wife hasn't got an account, so she'll set one up and we'll have 2 takeaways this weekend for a tenner each, sort of thing. And that's the way to do it. But these are the sort of things that you can build that loyalty and build that custom from other avenues. And again, that applies to service-based businesses. If you've had a great experience, if I've had a great experience working with Growtraffic, I'm much more likely to promote you to others, but without perhaps a prompt to promote or an incentive to promote, it might not happen. So how can we do that? How can we formalize those sorts of incentives for people?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Because
a lot of it is putting a plan in place to formalize a lot of the things that businesses already do, and making sure that they happen in the way that you think they happen every single time.
Yeah, and there's that stat. Yeah. There's that stat around the cost of a new customer, acquiring a new customer, and the cost of repeat business. I think we're up to about, the cost is about 10,000 times now, isn't it? The amount of times that's been repeated. But really, what that tells you is that there's margin in using an existing customer to attract new customers. And yes, that's going to rely on the service that you provide them. But if you've got confidence in that, then you can afford to. It's another marketing channel, right? It saves having to pay X amount on a new website, X amount on a new product launch or product development, or discount codes or AdWords, anything like that. You know, if someone's going to refer you in and promote your business because you're going to give each of them 10% off their next order, or, you know, however that works, if it's a kickback scheme or a refer a friend scheme, these sorts of things are the best way to grow your business, really, because the power of word of mouth over any other marketing channel, that person already has authority with the person they're referring into you.
Yeah.
But automating that process to remind people that this scheme exists, this refer a friend scheme exists, is still important, because without it, you're going to miss out on so many potential referrals into your business and new customers.
Well, the other thing is that, you know, if we think about this from a sort of SEO point of view, Google search engines, you know, they love trust signals. They want trust signals on your website. So they want you to have customer testimonials on there. They want you to have Trustpilot or Glassdoor or all these kind of all these review things. And you're absolutely right, Sean, in what you said there. People will only do that. They'll only fill out a review when they have a prompt to do it. And what you don't want, most people will fill out a negative review when they've had a negative experience, because that is their prompt. If you are not giving people a positive prompt to leave you a positive review, then they're just not going to remember to do it. People will not remember, and if you're giving them an incentive, even better. That's much more likely to get somebody to do it. So it's important from kind of the all aspects of that. We've talked about sort of why it would be important for businesses in a looking after their customers kind of way. Why else would it be important to businesses? And I'm thinking now in terms of data, you being able to collect that information about their customers and all those different things. I mean, Dally, what do you think? How else could it be useful to businesses?
I think like Sean said, once you've got these things set up, your basic structure set up, then you're going to start adding to them as you go along. And in doing that, you have to interpret the data that's coming in. And that means that you have an opportunity to get a deeper understanding of your customers, of their needs, wants, desires, of the ways that they interact with your products and services and the marketing that you've got. And it should be it's a feedback loop that's going to help you to improve everything that you're doing already, get better conversions, better conversion rates, retain customers more, make them advocates for you. So, it's all those benefits, really.
There's quite a good sort of profit calculator type of idea where you look at the different channels of growing your profit. So you've got getting more leads in. So if you like just doing a standard sort of pay-per-click ad campaigns, trying to attract more leads into the funnel. Then you've got the idea of trying to convert more. So how can we ensure that we're converting more deals? So that can be your remarketing automation elements. But beyond that, you've then got, well, how often does that person interact with us? So I've got a little bit of feedback. Is anyone else getting that on there?
A little bit of feedback, yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not.
I'll just mute mine for a second.
I think that's better.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. So I think that's a really important side to look at. Is actually it's about giving you time as well. Automation is all about freeing you up to be more productive with your time. So again, sorry, Liz, you're gonna earn more money by taking more photos as opposed to sending an email follow-up. And that's what you need the people to add the most value to the business where they can. And if that means that you automate all your invoices going out at the end of the month, it means you automate a reminder saying it's been 6 months since we did your engagement photography shoot. Do you want to book us for your wedding now? Things like these sorts of automations that you can factor into these. Or say if it's with a marketing, so content marketing, if you wanted to say to someone, we've been working with you six months now, we'd love to set up an interim review and see if these objectives are still right for you. That doesn't that email, that invite, that booking into your calendar to say just pick a date for me, which already syncs with your calendar. That level of automation is driven by a marketing tool to capture them, to look at doing more work with them. But it automates so much behind the scenes that it's going to free you up to add much more value to your business. And that's one of the key things for automation. You've got to look beyond the marketing context of how it can actually deliver value to your business.
Yeah, I want to, we've talked about the benefits of how it can help. I think two of the massive barriers that people have as to why they don't sign up to this are it's going to cost an absolute bloody fortune. And even if they get over that, it's the, how long is that going to take me? I've got to sit down, I've got to plan it all out, I've got to set all these systems up. There's such an investment of time in getting started. I think a lot of people, and I know in Growtraffic, it's not, it hasn't been the cost, it has purely been that time element of when are we all going to be able to sit around a table and work all of this shit out? We haven't got round to it. It's one of those jobs that's kept getting pushed back and back. And I know, Sean, with Blue Wren, this is one of the things that you help with. So how can you help customers, small businesses, overcome that initial cost and that initial time outlay?
It's about starting with a simple process map and identifying those pain points, because you don't need to automate your entire journey from day one. You need to automate the bits that are causing you the most pain. So is that because you're failing to update customers, or is it because you're failing to invoice in time, or where are these pains coming from in your business? And that you identify them by drawing a process map. Start at one end of a whiteboard and say, at this side, this is the customer entrance, how we engage with them. And then at the other side, it's when the business is complete, when the service is delivered, when the product is delivered, and what happens, and even after that. So the surveys, the feedback requests, the repeat purchases, map that initial process map, that critical pathway through your business. You'll identify 30% waste easily in terms of what you can trim. And don't think about it as a cost to invest in that. Think about what that 30% would do for you. So if you could finish work Thursday lunchtime every week and achieve as much as you have done in 3.5 days as you used to do in 5 days, that's what you want to get to. The only way you're going to get to that is by interrogating where you're wasting time and where you can improve your efficiency. And that, whether it's marketing, whether it's just general process, that's what I'd say is the truth. And it doesn't have to be expensive. There are tools out there that can do things automatically. You don't have to invest in a new CRM system. If you're already using something like Xero for accounts, they can automate all the invoice chase reminders for you. You don't need to send them yourself. These can be things that are automated to help capture, or to help close the loop, if you like, and to eliminate waste. And from a marketing perspective, send a proposal out, then have automated proposal chases so that you don't have to do all these things. They're all going to help you close more business in a more effective way, because instead of focusing on one deal until it's closed, you can focus on 5 or 6 different avenues with the same amount of effort, just by automating some of the core elements to it. And that's what I think. That's where I'd start, with a whiteboard and a marker pen, and just map that process, because that'll open your eyes to where those pain points are.
I think that's a really important point. You have very neatly led us on to my next question. But that whole thing of start small. You do not have to on day one automate your entire business. And the other thing is, like as you said, your automation and your workflow needs to be a living, breathing organism. It needs to flex and change and add and remove bits as your business grows and as your business changes. So it even should be something that you are adding the bits in as you go along, and as you realize, right, actually at this point it would be a good idea to do X, Y, or Z. Right, let's put that into the mix. Let's start doing that. So on a really kind of basic practical level, if you're a small to medium business and you want to start doing this, where should they start? No, Sean, you said get a whiteboard and just start mapping out, but literally, how do you start doing process mapping? Do you start by the first time somebody sees your advert, or what do you do? Really roughly.
It's at that point of engagement, essentially. So once they've engaged with some form of content, or some landed on your website, however it's come about, each of those triggers a different start to the workflow journey. So if they've seen you on an Instagram stories ad and clicked on that and gone through to your website, that journey will represent a different journey to if someone has typed into the search bar or straight into the browser to go straight to your website, because they'll have different expectations and they're going to you with a different motive. Like you say, are they there from a transactional point of view, or are they there out of curiosity because something's piqued their interest in your advert? Now,
you do have to. So that does point as well, though, Sean, that you've got to consider that bit before. So
exactly. So that's what I was going to come on to say. Is you start with that core area of the business, of sort of between point of engagement, sort of a general point of engagement, and point of conversion, but leave space at either side of the whiteboard to extend that journey, to reverse engineer your marketing and sales funnel out, and then also continue the journey and ultimately loop it back round to the start as well, because that's what it boils down to, is that you want them to stay on a journey with you. It doesn't end. A process map never ends. It has to have that continuous loop.
Yeah,
it's like an S curve, isn't it? It's like an S curve where they're slowly getting engaged with you, and then they're buying from you, and then they're dropping off again, and you've got to spin them back around and reconvert them back into the
100%. Yeah.
I think if you are just a small to medium business and you've never done process mapping, and this is completely new to you, though, I mean, I would say don't overcomplicate it. Literally start with somebody. You've got your first meeting with a prospect. So meeting with a prospect, what do they need from me? Signing up the quote, what do they need from me? Getting the contract, what do they need? Review meeting 1, review meeting 2, and literally just have kind of 5 or 6 points to begin with, and then, as you said, Sean, have that space at either end so that you can then start building it out. You can start putting the layers in. Okay, if they've come in at this point, they're going to need that. But to begin with, just don't overcomplicate it. Just really simply start to map out, how does somebody move through my business and what do they need from me at each of those points, and then you can build it out from there.
That's the point, because if you get that core process right, it means you'll have more time, because you've automated it, to focus on the bits that are outside of the core process, so to spend more time on your marketing and your remarketing and your efforts around there. That's the point of it. It's unlock the potential, essentially, by focusing on that core part of the business first.
I think sometimes some of the terminology stops businesses from doing any of this. And most, like I said earlier, most businesses have elements of all this going on already. They automate certain parts of their business and their processes. It's very rare that you find any business that does absolutely everything manually. It's just that they haven't joined all those things up. And I'm sure that you've found plenty of businesses that do absolutely everything manually as well. But it's very rare that most businesses do absolutely everything manually. There'll be some element.
Oh, is he frozen?
Of automation in there. It's just they won't. And also, that whole thing about workflows, about mapping things out. Like you said, Sean. Really, most of those things are mapped out when there's a problem. Where that's when businesses do it, and actually, they've putting things on a whiteboard, you suddenly realise, actually, I've got that process done. I've got that bit of the process done. It's more about joining them all together.
We are starting to come up to time. So if anybody watching has a question that they would like to ask, if you are watching this afterwards, are you not live, please do still put your question in the comments box, because we will be monitoring it, so we will be able to answer them. But we have a couple of questions in that I'd like us to get to before I get to my final questions to you two. So Alicia has asked us, what do we think about chatbots? Chatbots are all the rage at the moment. A lot of websites that you log on now will have a chat box pop up, and I think a common misconception about them is that they are purely automated and that they're just a standard thing, and you're not going to speak to a human. But what do you two think about them? Sean first, I'll come to you.
I like a chatbot. I think there's an element of automation that you can apply to the first message or two from a chatbot. But it's about the frequency and it's about the speed in which you can get to a real response, is what I would say, and having the resource there to do it. If you are not able to monitor your chatbot for all the hours that it's live, don't have a chatbot, because there's an expectation there that it's instant. And if you haven't got the resource available to do it, it will sooner turn people off than it'll keep them engaged. You have to make sure that they're able to get the response in a timely manner, because you've raised their expectations by having a chat function there. Now, there are levels of automation to help get to, so that you can get past the first couple of layers and sort of direct traffic how it needs to. But actually, a chat bot with the right level of resource is a very powerful tool.
I a couple of years ago implemented a chatbot that had really high levels of kind of AI and learning involved in it, and it was really sophisticated. It did a great job, and actually with that one, there was it was industry specific. It was specific to a certain industry, and it had been implemented on, I don't know, say something like 4,000 websites, and all the questions that it was being asked were relatively similar. And it had learnt from all of those websites what the right answer was and all the rest of it. So you could leave it alone. I question, I think a bit like Sean says, sometimes you can get stuck. You get into a dead end with them, and as part of your kind of automation stream, you don't want any opportunities for dead ends. You need to keep them moving along.
So I think, I mean, it's kind of like anything else, isn't it? Understand what you want to get out of having a chatbot. What is the end goal that you want it to do? And, if it fits in with that, then absolutely get one. But as Sean was absolutely right, if you can't commit to monitoring that, don't have it, because there's just nothing worse, is there, than customers. They will straight away go off. And it's a bit like when, on Facebook and stuff, where they say average time it takes to answer a message, and they're like, oh yeah, 3 hours. So you think, oh, I'm not going to bloody bother sending them a message then, am I? There's that expectation now from people that everything is instant. If you've got a chat function there, you're going to be answering it instantly, and if you can't do it, don't bother. I have another question that I'd written down here, and I can't for the life of me read my own writing. It looks like I've put conveyancing focuses about it, but I don't know what that means. So if I remember what that question is, we'll come back to it. In the meantime, what
was your question?
Well, are you not listening? Again, I just said I can't read my own writing.
My volume's gone really quiet, so you'll have to speak up. Don't shout too much there. You wake your neighbours.
I can't hear you. Speak up, but don't shout. Right. Anyway, moving on. So there's the final two questions now that I ask everybody. So my first question is, if somebody came to you now and said that they want to get started with workflow and automation, Sean, I'm coming to you first on this one. Where would you direct them to go? Are there any apps that you found? Any resources? Is Blue Wren any good? Where would you send somebody, and what would be the kind of first conversation that the starting point you would be advising them to have?
I'd have a chat with them. I'd have a try and understand the motives of what it is, and then help to draw the process map. We do that as part of the preamble, if you like, of our businesses, to get to understand business and help them map their processes to understand what their objectives are, but what the pain points are, and what ultimately where they're going and how they're going to get there. We'll help start to map those processes before we even look at a project with people. There's some great tools. I know I said get a whiteboard and a pen, but if you haven't got that, you can always there's a platform called Draw.io, which is really useful to start drawing those process maps out and actually have the visual maps in front of you. That was really powerful for us when we started looking at our own sales and marketing processes and how we can map those journeys. There's also some good marketing sort of automation platforms out there, like Campaign Monitor, for example, on active campaigns. I know are very good for sort of those triggers and workflows that you mentioned before, Dalley, to work through from the first interaction all the way through to sort of that conversion. You can put a lot in there, so those can be quite helpful. But otherwise, I'd just have a chat with us. To be brutally honest, just have a chat with someone that lives and breathes automation and productivity, because that's where you'll start to get gains with our experience now and knowledge of what can integrate with each other, how you can sort of get around those core or those issues that your business is facing. We've probably come across most of them already. So yeah, I'm more than happy to have a chat with anybody that's seen it.
I think as well. I mean, I will ask you, Sean, to put your contact details in the chat after we finish. You haven't blown your own trumpet very much during this, but I think it's one of the kind of plus points. I mean, price wise, you are miles cheaper than the kind of leading competitors on the market, but there is an initial outlay, and that outlay is because you sit down with a business and you will do all of that process mapping with them, and you will literally help them plan out everything. And that's, you know, obviously if you go into HubSpot, you can't get somebody to come and sit down with you and do that with you. So I think that's one of the big bonuses of going with a company like you. Not only are you cheaper, but you get that face-to-face.
And it's the point is your business is unique, right? You do things a little bit. Every service business prides themselves on being slightly different and doing things slightly different to the competitors. Your platforms and the way you power your business need to represent how you do it. They don't need to represent the 95% that do it the same. They need to represent the personality and the sort of the unique selling points of your business, and that's where using someone like us as opposed to a HubSpot or a Salesforce or Active Campaigns, that's where you can really start to get the benefit for us, is because we can make that about your processes and your business and make it unique to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Dalley, where would you be sending people? Any apps, resources, websites that you think might be a good place to start?
Say Blue Wren. Say Blue Wren.
Should I say Blue Wren?
Yeah.
Yeah, shouldn't I? I probably would send them to the HubSpot. What do HubSpot call it? Is it university or academy or something like that?
The vlog, yeah.
They've got loads of content on there. There's plenty of marketing websites out there. I'm sure if you were to go on Marketo, you'd find a load of really useful resources on there as well. But you know, you're right in terms of the costs associated with setting up some of those bigger kind of frameworks is astronomical sometimes. Having been in a business that did set up with Marketo, I kind of have an idea for that. And Pardot, I've used that in the past, and you know, massive costs, initial outlays for those types of solutions. In terms of, I think I'd absolutely send them to a specialist in this. It's one of those things that you and you need. You tend to, I think you need that kind of strong IT environment within your own business as well to kind of really stitch everything together, because everything needs to be talking to each other, and if you don't have that, sometimes it's difficult to implement anyway, unless you're going to outsource everything to another company to do, which is probably what most small businesses need to do, I suppose.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, again, it depends how, you know, it's how long's a piece of string, isn't it? You can do this on a shoestring with just a few systems and processes in there. You don't have to, you know, what you're talking about, Dalley, is big companies with multi-million-pound turnover and loads of employees and big things. If you're just, you know, you're kind of small business owner or sole trader, you can still do it. You just do it on a smaller scale, don't you? We're running out of time anyway, so we're running out of time. I'm going to ask you quickly for your one top tip. So if a business came to you today and said, we want to start marketing automation, what would you tell them, Sean? What would your top tip be?
Talk to us, of course. No, I've said it so many times. It's that process map. Start with a map. Start with understanding the journey. Otherwise, you'll just waste money looking at improvements where you don't know things are going wrong. So start with that process map. Yeah,
absolutely. Dalley, what would yours be?
Well, I drew from my own experience. So I have never been good at processes. I've never been good at developing those processes. They don't. I know that they're important. I know they're essential, and I want to ensure that they're in place. But they don't excite me, and I'm bored by them. So I think it's also about recognizing that this is something that needs to be thought out in quite a detailed level. And if you're not that person, and you know, quite a few kind of business entrepreneurs, business owners probably aren't that person, get somebody in who has that kind of process-driven mindset. Someone like you, absolutely. I've always needed someone in the background.
Yeah, I agree with that. My top tip might sound like it's contradictory, but it's not. It is actually, don't overcomplicate it. So make it as simple as you can, and then you can build out on it from there. And if you, as Dalley says, if you can't do it, if it's not your bag, absolutely talk to somebody, because Sean will absolutely help you do it. If Sean's not the right person, he will point you in the direction of somebody. But don't think of it as a massive thing that you've got to sit down and do. Just sit down. You can do it on a piece of A4, map out the beginning of your buyer journey, and then you can build on it from there. Because if you don't understand what your business needs in the journey through your business, your customers can't be expected to understand it, and anybody that you work with to try and get this in place won't understand it either. So just start small and crack on, basically. That's it. We are at 2 o'clock. Thank you so much to both of you. Sean, please put your details in the comment box. If anybody has any further questions, as I say, we will monitor this well forever. So please do ask us any questions. We'll be back next Friday. I've got no idea what we're talking about next Friday, but we're all on the way to a new lockdown, aren't we? So the world might have ended by then anyway. Say goodbye, everybody.